But it had an orchard.
It did. Well, we have apple trees all over the island, actually. Well, now, although now they're crab apples, apparently Kessa brought an apple tree to the island, and there's an amusing story if you want to hear it.
Yes, please.
We encountered a lady who was into, she was doing all sorts of different therapies, but crystal therapy and one or two other things, and she wanted to do a case history on an animal, and at that time we'd just rescued a little horse. And we said, yes, by all means come across. She'd actually noticed us out of a crowd of people and had tried to get to us for about an hour, saying that she had to desperately speak to us because we had this aura about us, Susan and I, and she knew that we healed things. So when we told her about the horses, she desperately wanted to come. Anyway, she came. She worked with this little horse with crystals and all sorts of things, and it actually did seem to have an effect on the horse. But whilst we were there sitting in the garden, we were having tea in the afternoon, and she asked, and to our knowledge, she had no knowledge of Inchtavanach at all. She said, is this a religious site? And we said, well, yes, from what we know. I think so, she said. It definitely is, because there's a column of monks walking through the garden just now. Right. And the man in the front of them is a very happy, jolly sort of big fellow, and he's eating an apple. And he's really very, very, very pleasant sort of fellow. And later on that day, we took her for a walk along the fields, and we didn't again say anything to her, but we stopped, or she stopped, next to the cave where Kessa was supposedly or reputedly used to live. And she said, oh, here's that fellow again. And he's going fishing, and this is where he loves to fish. And again, he was eating an apple, but she said this is his favourite spot on the whole place. Now, to my knowledge, she didn't know Inchtavanach at all, or had never talked about it to us before, but we found that quite interesting. Yeah.
You allowed us to have a very special service there.
Well, that for me was a great treat too, because I've often thought it's a very, very special place, not just to me, but I would have thought to lots of others, and especially the religious connections. And it was just so great to have your Church Without Walls service across there.
Tell us a wee bit about all that you did that day, because it was quite spectacular.
Well, we have a barge, so to transport people across, that was the first thing. And we had 2 barge loads of people. I think we had about 90 people that day. Yes. So the first lot of people came from LUSS, and this barge doesn't go at any great rate of knots, so it took us a while. So we took the second lot of people from Bandry, which is a good bit closer to the island, had the service, and then you were all having a barbecue back at the manse. So we took the first lot of people back again to Bandry, and the second lot we decided we would come back up to LUSS. So we deposited you all here, and we were invited to come back for the barbecue, which we thought we might be able to do. Actually, I was absolutely really ill that day. I felt terrible that day. But anyway, we decided to push off, and we weren't going anywhere. We weren't going in reverse or anywhere. And suddenly the engine started steaming in the gearbox. We stopped it, and by that time we'd drifted a little bit into the shore and got out and had a look at the rudder and the propeller, should I say. And here's a carpet absolutely, completely bound round about it. Obviously we'd picked it up at the jetty, but so we then, I tried to get it off, and there was absolutely no way. So we had to go back home, and I got a wetsuit and a couple of knives, and had to come back, and it took us about an hour and a half, I think it was, to cut this thing off.
And yet for us it was one of the best days we've had.
It was
the sun just shone, everyone had a whale of a time. We had a fabulous service, it was a communion service, and certainly even to us it felt like being a particularly special place, and I hope you'll let us do it again.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think it is though. For me, it's been a great place in my life. I mean, I've been very lucky to be there. I've had 2 children, and both who absolutely adored the place and still do. For Nicola, the youngest, it's been a very special place. I don't think we're going to ever get rid of him. He's still at home. But it's helped me in all sorts of ways over the years. It really is an incredible place. We've had people to stay with us who have had problems and have gone away and been able to face up to things. And so it's not only horses, it's people as well. It really is an incredible place. And I often people come in the summertime in boats and don't really seem to appreciate it. They leave it in a bit of a state quite often as not. But fortunately, we do have some people who come and see it for what it is, but go away feeling really impressed with the place, but so much better within themselves. I have somebody who comes from America, and he's been coming now for the last 5 years, and he says it's the place in the world for him. And he feels how I feel about it.
I can imagine.